All right, so I'm Dan with GameSalute.com, and we're talking with Stephen Buonocore from Stronghold Games. It's a new company. This is their first release. Their first bunch of releases are all classic games that they're bringing back. This one's a classic. It's the 25th anniversary edition of Code 777. So welcome to GameSalute.com, and thanks for joining us.
I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. This is great.
And why don't you tell us about what is apparently in your Chrome line, as it says on the side of the box, number one.
That's right. This is Code 777. It's a 25th anniversary edition of a very classic game. The people on The Geek talked about this thing, like they raved about it, and we decided we have to use this as our launch game. Been out since September now, selling very well, selling out of stock at the distributor level, but it's back in, don't worry about it. The funny thing about this game is extremely simple mechanics, but very deep deduction game. It's the granddaddy of deduction games. I kind of compare this to like the way El Grande is the granddaddy of area control games. This is the granddaddy of deduction games. And what happens in this game is there's 28 tiles. They're numbered from 1 to 7. I don't know if you'll be able to see it on camera, but the numbers go from there's 1 1, 2 2s, 3 3s, all the way up to 7 7s. That's the distribution of numbers. And there's different colors on the tiles as well. So in turn, a player will ask a question, and they're going to ask a question about the 3 racks that they can see. I can't see what's on my rack, and I'm looking. You can, if you want to look at that. Oh, there you go. I can't see what's on my rack. I'm assuming that this player, our audience, is this rack over here. And this is another player. So I'm going to ask and answer a question from my perspective based on what I can see. The first question that I ask is, do you see more black or more red numbers? So looking at the 3 racks that I can see, I'm going to say I see an equal number of black and red numbers. So what does that mean? I don't know if you looked at this, Dan. Did you look at it? Don't look at it. Oh, that's your rack. Don't look at it. So if I say to you that I see an equal number of black and red numbers.
So I know that I assume pink is different than red, right?
That's right.
So then I have a red one.
That means you have a red number. And the guy over there, our audience, who may be able to see that red one, knows that they have a black number.
And so I know that I most likely have a 5 because is that right?
You most likely have a 5. In fact, you have to have a 5. Only 5s are red.
Yes, okay.
See that?
So then there's one black 5. So if I had black, I could have a 3 or a 5.
That's exactly right. That player, hi audience, you have either a 3 or a 5. I'm not telling you what you have, but you have one of those. Let's say I ask this question instead, because each person would go in turn. The next person would go, and then the audience, and then Dan would go. If I ask this question, on how many racks do you see 3 consecutive numbers? Again, I'm looking at these 3 racks, and I'm answering the question. And I see on one rack 3 consecutive numbers. Now,
So
Dan...
3 consecutive numbers only on that rack.
On any given rack, I see 3 consecutive numbers. That could be a 1, 2, 3, a 2, 3, 4, a 4, 5, 6, etc. 3 consecutive numbers. And the order actually on the rack itself doesn't matter. It's simply, do I have those numbers on the rack?
So it could say 3, 2, 1, but you would say
one,
I see
two,
consecutive.
I see a set of consecutive numbers on a rack. And the answer is I see 1. Now, I don't know if the audience can see it, but the audience doesn't see a consecutive number on either of these racks. I'm not answering from this because I don't see that. So obviously our audience rack knows they now have 3 consecutive numbers on their rack. Immediately, they would make some marks on their sheet. The game comes with these sheets, double-sided sheets to make the marks. So you'd say, I have 3 consecutive numbers. You write notes. This game is about taking really good notes because there's so many little pieces of information that you're going to get as things come into you. Of course, you would also, when you started the game, you'd look at the 9 numbers that you can see here, and you'd immediately scratch those off because you know you don't have those numbers. And then, as questions are asked, the onion becomes unraveled, and you can finally make a guess. When you can make a guess, you get it right. Those 3 numbers go out of the game. You get a new set of tiles. First one to get 3 guesses right wins the game.
That's great. So that seems very simple, very straightforward, and it seems like if you like deduction games like Mastermind or any of those things, you're going to like this. It's multiplayer. It's not just 2 players. Plays 2 to 4, right?
Plays 2 to 5. In fact, we made and 5's kind of a sweet spot in gaming too, right? We made 2 improvements besides the quality of the components, which are much, much, much denser than they were. They weren't this very, very dense plastic, and these racks that with things don't fall out of them very easily, and if they do fall, they kind of fall straight down, so it won't ruin the game for you. Besides the quality component upgrade that we did, we made two big improvements. We went to 5 players, so there's an extra rack for a 5th player to play the game, and we made it colorblind friendly. We did the research on this. This game has never been in that form, never had color. We did research. 10% of men, and only men, have a color blindness sensitivity of some type or another. It's a genetic thing it's a Y chromosome thing that only men have. Extra little research, extra little knowledge for your audience that we found out. You get a little biology information there. But now all of the numbers have a symbol behind them. So, for instance, all of the green numbers, there's a green 1 and 3 green 6s, they all have a circle around them. All of the blue numbers have a diamond around them. So even if you have color sensitivity, you can play this game without a problem. Those are our 2 big things to change in the game. Very, very, very simple mechanic, but very deep and very brain-burny to try to figure out your numbers sometimes. We found that teenagers especially do great at this game. Kind of bright teenagers, the 12 to 14 set. You know Jeff Engelstein? From the Dice Tower. Sure. Good friend of mine, lives close by. He was playing in a tournament with his daughter. And Andy Parks, game designer, was playing in the tournament on another table with his daughter. They destroyed their fathers. They beat them badly. I mean, I was just laughing at Jeff because he kept guessing wrong, and he's like the smartest guy I know. So, really great for that set. Great party game too for 4 or 5, and scales very well.
Well, it seems like it plays pretty quickly too, like 20 minutes, 30 minutes.
Yeah, I would say it's depending on how fast you and how quick you do your notes, 20, 30, 40-minute game. Plays very fast.
Depending on number of players and all that.
And number of players too. My wife and I play this game 2 players, and it plays very well. You just play with 2 dead racks, neutral racks, and then when a guess is made, you also take down one of those racks as well. And that's how the game is played. Very simple, scales very well.
That's great. So that's Code 777, the 25th anniversary edition from Stronghold Games. That's the first one of their games that's been released, and they have at least 3 more on the way, and then some more after that.
Many more after that.
So stay tuned to GameSalute.com for all the latest and greatest in games, including Stronghold Games. Stephen, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Dan. Really appreciate it. Thank you for your time. Bye.